Welcome to Internext Global On Demand. Please enjoy the session at your own pace.
Hello everyone, I'm Santiago Poveda and I lead retail, fashion and luxury at Online Solutions. I'm really excited to host this session of Internext Global with such a great panel of industry experts. So let me initially open it up for introductions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Ashley Ward, and I am the Director of Supply Chain Planning at Walmart Canada.
Thank you. Shall we go on to you, Gabriela?
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriela Wortman, and I'm the Vice President of Global Planning at New Balance Athletics.
Great to have you here. Brady, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brady Cody. I'm the Associate Vice President for Merchandise Planning at SportCheck and Atmosphere.
Thank you for coming. And Glenn, last but not least.
Hi, thank you, Santi. My name is Glenn Pascal. I'm the Executive Vice President of Merchandise Planning at Citizen Watch America. Thank you.
Thank you, and really excited about the panel today. The conversation will be about how to optimize sales and margin performance in retail and fashion through the multiple decisions involved in its value chain. And we will kick it off with a question that is very current. So in the current context of volatility and uncertainty, we need a digital platform that helps us enhance our agility to operate efficiently while reacting early to changes. I wanted to ask, what are the current transformation initiatives in your company, and how will they help you be more agile in your operations? Gabriela, do you mind kind of kicking us off to that question?
Sure, not a problem. So New Balance, we are in the process of replacing our entire supply chain planning suite to improve forecast accuracy and workforce efficiencies. It's a multi-year project. We are currently integrating O9 solutions technology across our North America operations. We're probably going to go live very soon. And then the next phase will entail rollouts to our international regions, Europe, Asia Pacific, and China. So we are deploying three main capabilities in this first phase: demand planning, inventory planning, and supply planning. But with O9, we are taking a platform approach. So we are viewing O9 as a single platform that covers a wide range of functions for us. So after this initial phase, we are looking to roll out merchandise financial planning, global control tower, some advanced data science capabilities, and some supplier collaboration tools as well. The current initiative will allow us to replace all our manual demand planning processes. So we are going to have automated system forecast generation. We are going to have automated demand sensing. We are finally going to be able to incorporate sell-through information to inform our current and future forecasts. We are also going to have system-generated forecast accuracy metrics. We are going to have dashboards and alerts to show us what our forecast error drivers are. So we are really excited about these possibilities. When it comes to inventory planning and supply planning, probably the most exciting part of it is the scenario planning capability. So we are going to be able to collaborate with our internal and external stakeholders based on various plans we create in O9. And we are going to be able to create multiple plans based on enterprise objectives. So if our objective is to reduce inventory, we're going to be able to create a scenario based on that. If our objective is to balance fill rate across our suppliers, we're going to be able to plan based on that. So we are really excited about that feature.
Awesome. That's a really exciting journey. And Brady, may I ask you that you are in a slightly different stage of the transformation about what are the initiatives that you have today and how they help you be more agile in your operation?
Yeah, for us, we're actually maybe at a slightly different stage in our journey, as you mentioned. And so a lot of our transformation right now is about resiliency to volatility. So receipt volatility, forecast volatility. So there's a couple of things that we're focused on implementing, particularly in the demand planning and inventory management space. Shifting to some capabilities that allow us to better manage what I call macro demand over micro or SKU demand. when we have receipt volatility, be it from a vendor base or from a manufacturing standpoint, we actually want to be able to understand the aggregate consumer demand. There's a pretty high degree of demand transferability, I find, in a lot of the retail space, particularly in the apparel and footwear space. There's obviously some SKUs, some products that are, they stand alone and you can't really transfer demand, but in a lot of cases, it's about meeting that aggregate need. So we've been transforming some of our capabilities to better manage that so we can be more resilient when we have volatility in either forecast accuracy or receipt delivery.
That's really exciting and definitely pushing to the next level. Following up on that, in retail and fashion, as you were saying, there's a lot of transferability and there is a lot of detail required because we need to operate at a very granular level with many locations and being able to see that aggregated view, but also the granular location in SKU, including newness and understanding demand it's a critical driver of efficient operations. So I wanted to ask Glenn, how is technology enabling to operate regularly at that level of detail in your case? Because definitely we see this across retail, and I would love to hear what changes are you implementing and how they will also operate at that level of granularity.
Yeah, it was interesting to listen to Gabriela. We used New Balance as an RFP reference before we selected 09. We had the same criteria. We wanted a single platform solution. That was really important to us, that we can plug in different workflows, modules as we grew. We're at the very beginning of our stage. We're on the low end of the maturity curve. It's taken me 6 or 7 years to convince the organization to make the level of investment we're making today. But briefly, we are moving forward with a MFP solution, a DP solution, and an SP solution. Those will be integrated and really critical in our process. I just happen to have responsibility for demand planning, purchasing, as well as financial sales setting and all the metrics that go along with that, which is not usual to my history, and I don't know a lot of other people that have roles like that. But it's also we have 6-month lead times. Our product is timepieces, so we have a frozen lead time. It's a make to order. We cannot adjust the orders after we make them. And we have extremely volatile customer base, I would say, exciting in a way, or else I wouldn't be needed. So we really want to link together the financial decisions, understand them. I think Gabriela said something about scenario planning. We want to use the scenario leading up to the S&OP meeting every month, and then how does it impact our open to buy, the consensus forecast? How does it impact the gross margin? These are things we can't easily see today when we're making decisions at this, very easily, and at the time we need to see them. So in terms of granularity, of course we have DP, so we're going from a quite detailed level. We're making the decision right now to determine if we're going to use model key customer or model all customer as our control level. Of course, there's issues with each, right? Is the disaggregation logic okay? Does, what's the level that we're doing the enrichments at? I'm very excited. This is all supposed to be done by the end of the year. So so far we're on schedule, but it's quite challenging. Thank you, Santi. Yeah.
Good, and that is actually a great point. I love that debate of actually understanding at what level do we, because there's definitely a trade-off on the level of granularity that you utilize and what decisions do you want to drive with that forecast. So yeah, indeed is an exciting area. Kind of just moving on to a little bit further down, you were mentioning the S&OP meetings, and totally once we have that demand planning view that we were mentioning, being able to connect it to supply, it's a critical element. I wanted to ask on that one, Ashley, how does the S&OP process allow you to manage the network capacity in a network like Walmart Canada's extensive and very frequent kind of deliveries in your process?
Yeah, so I mean, we're trying to deliver across an entire country. And I think the first thing, I take it back a level, and I always say the S&OP process, it does one thing above all, it creates trust. And it creates trust in all the stakeholders. So once we get the process correct, it just enables decision-making at a much quicker pace and allows us to move that product in an efficient way. So I often say to my team, planning is the action, but communication is the first thing that enables influence to change. So as we're doing that plan and as we're coming up with the S&OP, what we're really doing is communicating where we're at and influencing the decisions that we need. And then once we have that awareness, then it allows that better decision making. So we're not duplicating work efforts. We're not sending something to Vancouver that should have been in Newfoundland, and then having to transfer it back and the costs that come there. But all of those, I mean, that's a very extreme case, but all of those moments are aware through that S&OP process. And then really, when we get down to the technical, it allows us, when we're into that system, to make those scenario changes, right? So we're going to say this is plan A, but we all know in supply chain, plan A never turns out, right? So I need to have scenario B, C, and D ready to go. So that's where technology allows us to build that trust and make all of those contingency efforts overall.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you. It's a great summary of what we can make with S&OP. I think one area in which I understand, Gabriela, you mentioned that we were looking also in New Balance at supplier collaboration. It's one part of that S&OP. It's actually indeed the flow of goods within your company. But I guess that in a company like New Balance, where you are working with contract manufacturers and with a longer lead time, how are you integrating and collaborating with those, or planning to collaborate with those suppliers to align capacities and material plans on a little bit further horizon than the one that we were describing just now?
So I can describe the current process first, and then I'll talk about how O9 is going to help us. So today, surprise, surprise, we use an Excel-based rough cut capacity plan. That honestly for Excel, it's a pretty good tool, but obviously we want to change at some point. What that tool does, it translates all our demand signals into production requirements. So it really takes all the demand signals, open purchase orders, SI level forecast, model level forecast, and something that we call markers, which is a type of measure that's product agnostic, and it represents demand prior to product creation. So our RCCP takes all those signals and essentially creates an unconstrained view of our requirements. Then the planners go in and manually kind of constrain that view. They optimize the plan. They take capacity constraints, unique market level production requirement constraints, fill rate balancing, all those into account. And as I said, they create a constrained, optimized view of our requirements that we then share with all our suppliers. So they can plan, based on that, they plan assembly capacity, they plan equipment, they plan labor, and they stage materials. Now, what we are going to have after our O9 go live is O9 is going to do all that work for us. So O9 is going to have a predetermined set of restrictions and preferences, and O9 is going to do the translation of demand into an RCCP. And I mentioned scenario planning, and that's where scenario planning will be fantastic for us, is because again we can say our criteria or our most important objective is customer service, and then we are going to have a rough cut capacity plan that supports customer service while highlighting maybe we have additional capacity requirements or additional production sources we need. So we are going to be able to do much more proactive sourcing decisions in the future.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Gabriela. I think it's really great to see the different horizons and how actually being able to adjust your decisions on different times are helping the process in different way. I'm actually planning on moving the question now to the opposite side of the I would say time frame, and ask Brady about the kind of distribution plans to maintain the right level of stocks at location and SKU level to maximize service with minimal inventory. That is a huge volume of product flows for Canadian Tire. How are you adding efficiency to that model through the integration of technology? It's a completely different kind of a spectrum of the decisions from the longer term to the shorter term, but I think it provides a view on the breadth of decisions that we need to take in retail and apparel.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly important question. On one hand, you have, how do I present my products? How do I make them come to life on the shelf? How do I make them look full? How do I make them look like they're in stock? On the other hand, there's SKU productivity. So what's my service level? Can I turn my inventory? All of these factors. So obviously balancing the two is a pretty critical factor. So what I found is eye-opening in our company is the fact that demand is often quite fractional when you carry a large and diverse SKU base across many, many stores. So when you factor in the fractional demand nature across a really diverse SKU set, it's very easy to weigh yourself into a position where you've overextended your stock across hundreds of retail locations. When you get into that position, not only do you have challenges with exiting the product efficiently, turning it through the location, turning it through your network in general, but also becomes a margin challenge. So generally speaking, we have a lot of life cycle products that come in and exit within 13 to 26 weeks. And so when you have a life cycle that's short, that relatively short, it's pretty critical that you manage your turn of your stock and your service levels while still balancing that presentation aspect of being available for the customer for a full size curve. The cascading impact of not managing through that service level and that turn rate and weighing yourself too heavily on the presentation factor is you take more markdowns at your stores, you have to sell your product at a lower margin, and inevitably that ends up cannibalizing you. It cannibalizes the next new product introduction that comes into the network, and it just delivers lower margin rates. So from a technology standpoint, understanding fractional demand, understanding and being able to convey inventory forecasts, SKU productivity forecasts, and the role that those play in inventory deployment has been really, really critical in terms of aligning cross-functionally on best practices. It's always a battle. Like, I think that's the key thing, is the battle is between how I want to present my product, fulsome, full size curves, looking great on end caps and displays, but also I'm already ready to sell through that product and move on to the next SKU. And weighing those two is, I think, one of the most challenging things in retail. Technology helps us with that. Planning our life cycles helps us with that. Being able to leverage inventory policies like presentation values versus weeks of supply, those are pretty critical factors.
Thank you, Brady. I think that's definitely, I would say, one of the central elements of operations on retail, and being able to really handle that trade-off and have that visibility. It's a critical element to success on our business. So really glad for your example. I wanted to just follow up on that, and Glenn, I wanted to ask about how do you handle and prioritize the stock between different channels in Citizen Watch, or how do you plan to do it if there is a conflict between them at any moment in time? Because I guess that's also one of the added challenges when you are managing wholesale and retail, and I guess this will also apply to New Balance, for example, in Gabriela. But Glenn, can you give us your opinion a little bit on how to balance the different channels?
Yeah, I'm a demand planner by experience. So my first job was in '97. So I think that's our biggest challenge as a company is, and it's somewhat not in my nature to understand the complexity of networks and the requirements, because I want to forecast a SKU, an item, not a location and a presentation and weeks of stock, as Brady said. It's very complicated. So we don't do it well today. It's one of the reasons why we wanted a robust priority-based allocation system. Our network is simple, Santi, so I don't have the challenges Gabriela Brady, and I'm sure Ashley do as well, which is I have basically electronic locations. I have a single warehouse in California, but tremendously challenging because we have a pool of stock in a location that is, so any customer can bypass their allocation location and go right and dip into the reserve account, the overdraft account, I call it. And it causes tremendous disruptions in our ability to supply. And even coming from the top down, I'm not just talking about the customer, but sometimes what we're directing the customers to buy, to make a plan, or to, the disruptions that causes. So what I'm getting at is that our model may be simpler, but it's just as challenging because we want to move to an automated rules-based allocation system. And you're right, we have digital, we have physical outlet stores, we still have a lion's share of our business is wholesale. We do a lot of drop shipping. I probably have 10,000 stores in our network, plus the digital e-commerce connections, including our eponymous websites, but also Macy's.com, for example. So it's quite challenging. We're designing a system to address how can we align what's in that location to the forecast and change that over time efficiently as I need to. And then how do I prioritize customer orders as they consume the forecast? It gets quite complicated. I'm hoping that as a result, we are able to optimize our inventory and have better turnover rates. I think Brady talked about turnover. I don't have the presentation stock issue that he has, but we have the challenge of how do I rebalance the stock to the electronic locations, which is not as costly, but as difficult a problem same difficulty. So.
Thank you. Really, really helpful, and indeed another big problem of omni-channel, multi-channel kind of the business in retail and fashion is that handling of the different priorities, and being able to prioritize is definitely a critical element of success in our industry. Now, knowing that we have a little bit under 10 minutes left, and trying to get practical to give some advice to the people that are starting on the digital transformation journey of their planning, do you have any practical advice for the audience on either the key drivers of success, either on the transformation or on the selection and the setting up of a program? I think many of our listeners will be really interested on your opinion from having gone through it. I don't know if we can start, for example, with you, Ashley, on any advice that you might have.
Yeah, so I've been going through an 09 journey, and we're still on it as we bring in new programs. I think some of the advice and some of the practical ways that we've found success is I always follow the model, people, process, technology. When we talk about people, we talk about two different ways. One is really understanding the concerns of the user and what we're solving for, not an assumption that a bunch of managers come up with. Get down to the ground level, understand the concerns that we're solving. That's one approach for people. But the second one that is just as important is influencing our leadership. You got to have that C-suite level buy-in. They have to be advocating. They have to be bringing that message down, but you got to understand there. And then we talk about process. I think 09 did one of the best jobs I've ever experienced, which is through the design phase. Seems long, it seems tedious, all those little details, but designing the process and understanding the process in what you're trying to solve is what you need to do before you get to technology solution, because now you're creating a solution that you don't know what the answer is that you're looking for. So people, then you've built out your process, and then you engage in that technology, and you'll have a better, quicker adoption, better rollout, quicker rollout, and you'll see that ROI a lot quicker if you kind of follow through the overall change management transformation.
I love that answer, Ashley. It's very clear and very comprehensive. Anything, Gabriela, that you would like to add, maybe from your point of view?
Sure. kind of very similar to what Ashley said. So again, our current transformation is about implementing an end-to-end supply chain capability. And the initial focus is, as I said, is on demand planning, inventory planning, and supply planning. But concurrently with the O9 implementation, we are also implementing a new ERP. We are implementing Microsoft D365, and the idea is for the two systems to work in harmony. So any company that decides to embark on a journey like this, I really would have kind of three pieces of advice. First one, focus on future state business design as early in the project as possible, and take it really seriously, designing kind of your future state blueprint. The second one, have a very well-defined vendor selection process. We spent over a year selecting our vendors. And the third one, I would say, focus on getting your basic features right in the implementation before moving on to kind of the more nice to have or more complicated use cases. So that would be my advice.
I love that idea, Gabriela. We like to talk about the crawl, walk, run approach. Let's make sure that we cover the basics first. We are able to change the process that Ashley was talking about, get people involved, share early successes, and then keep building on those to keep generating more success. Glenn, any closing thoughts from your side on any recommendations for the audience on from where you are now?
I'll start broadly. Be persistent, and I think this is a 7-year journey for me. I have a trophy case of failures to communicate, as Ashley said, to the C-suite the necessity of this. I think, so that's the first thing I would say, be very persistent. This is not, planning is not a short-term, there's no short-term solution. It requires a lot of partnership and communication outside the organization, as well as up the ladder. More specifically, I would reiterate what both Ashley and Gabriela said. We had an outside consultancy come in and look at, really, we developed the future planning state with them, people, process, technology. None of those was less important than the other. What do I have the right team? Do I, for what we want to do? They conducted a robust RFP. I couldn't come anywhere near that doing it internally. So that was a big piece of it. They also identified areas where the demand planning was lacking. You know, we had a system that we implemented in 2007, and we were overriding forecasts because the planner. So I think Ashley said the user needs to drive that is so critical. They're going to use the system. They're telling you something very important. I would definitely reiterate that that's a strong point. And then finally, you have to communicate. Even though you're in the process, you have buy-in, you have millions of dollars, you have new people, you're designing the system you want. You have to continually communicate the value of that to the executive group. And then, you know, we're in an area where we can't get by on our looks. We actually have to deliver a substantive, against metrics. That's what to me is so exciting about our area. So making sure that you have buy-in on this is how we're going to measure our success going forward. That'd be my advice.
Super helpful, Glenn, super helpful. And I guess I leave it on a very difficult spot for you, Brady, because a lot has been shared already. But any closing thoughts from your side on what are the advices that you might share with our audience?
Yeah, I was just thinking all the good advice has been given. But no, I think there's two last pieces I would add here. One, in retail in particular, we can never lose sight of the customer, and every transformation, every change should be in the lens of making the customer experience frictionless and better, and all of those important pieces. It's all anchored in the customer. Number two would be change management. I think Ashley and Glenn and Gabriella talked about it a little bit, but like, just to be super clear, organizational change management couldn't be more important when you undergo large transformative change. Not only do you need to unlock all these great capabilities, but you actually need people to learn to use them, to buy into using them. And it's not just your end users, it's the cross-functional teams that will rely on the outputs that come from these groups. And if you're living in the inventory or the planning space, you have a lot of cross-functional partners that are dependent on good outcomes and outputs from your team. So getting sponsorship, getting buy-in from cross-functional teams, managing the change management successfully goes an exceptionally long way to having positive transformative change and having it be very effective.
Thank you very much, Brady. And I think we are at time. I have to say, I've really enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you very much to all of you. I hope that our audience has enjoyed it as much as I have. I think there's been a lot of content that has been shared and a lot of ideas. To the audience, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. We will more than happy follow up on those. And to you panelists, thank you very much for your time and for your participation. It's been a pleasure to host this panel today. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Santi.